to turn that all on, but it's there. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we're right here at Instagram Live. Last week, I remember I came back from a trip, so I skipped a week, and so I picked it up again. But so we'll be here now every week again. It's a special weekend, right? It's the weekend before Thanksgiving, and I'm always thinking, hey, if there's no question, what shall I talk about? But luckily, there are a couple of questions that I received about Thanksgiving, specifically from friends from outside the U.S. who don't know what Thanksgiving is, and as most people know that are watching me on live, I didn't know either. Okay, I've become an American citizen, but I was not born here, so I was not raised with the tradition of Thanksgiving. But this is for me always the start of the holiday season in the U.S., and I'm always getting a little bit excited and stuff like that. But I must honestly admit, my thought always goes back, or my thoughts maybe always go back. If holiday, it goes quickly back to what we call Sinterklaas in the Netherlands, which is the beginning of December, which is a tradition that's under a lot of scrutiny. I'm not going into that at all today, but and then it's Christmas, of course, and New Year's, and those were the big holidays for me. But one of the special things that I like to do was watching old movies. Right, that's one of the things that I really enjoy doing during the holidays. Now, when I came to the US, I noticed that, hey, holiday season starts a little bit early here, which is great, right? You know, because we have first Halloween, which is another holiday that I actually don't really know much about. And to be honest, I don't have a lot of feel for that holiday. I think it's just a great party, but I don't consider it as a holiday, right? After all, the word holiday is coming from holy day, right? So I always equate it a little bit what at least is to my belief system, right? It has nothing to do with that. I want to convince you about your belief system, but that's a little bit for me what holidays are. They are a little bit connected to how I was raised, and then first of all, of course, it was Christmas. Now, hence my first thought when I heard about Thanksgiving, and that was already happening when I was traveling to the U.S., that I actually thought it was also a religious holiday, but it is actually not true. That has nothing to do with religious. It has something to do with the first pilgrims, coming, which is a little bit religious now that I say it, but it has not so much to do with convincing people to take on a different religion. It has something to do with the first pilgrims that come to the U.S. and celebrate, a dinner with the Native Americans. Now, unfortunately, I don't think that narrative is entirely true, but that doesn't really matter, right? So here is the thing, right? We hear around us, of course, I can already hear it, that we should not celebrate this holiday anymore because, at some point in history, we as the people who immigrated from outside the US, inside the US, we all did something awful to the Native American people, and hence we cannot celebrate this holiday anymore. I can already hear it coming up, right, after all we have been through. So what I want to say, let's not do that. Let's say, let's think about what the spirit is of the holiday. The spirit of the holiday is already revealed in the name. It's Thanksgiving. We give thanks to what we have on that special day. And I started to fall in love. I mean, I've been in the U.S. I've come into the U.S. at least for over 20 years, but I live in the U.S. for about 14 years now. And I start to appreciate this holiday as one of my favorite holidays, to be honest, because it's not so much about gifts. It's more about really thinking and about Thanksgiving. Okay, there is a meal, and yes, most people are more excited about Black Friday, which is where you get all these sales, which already start Monday, so that confuses me completely. But anyhow, Black Friday is where you can get these awesome deals in the stores, and about what we shall eat. So we kind of skip a little bit um, over what the spirit of this holiday. And before if I see some Dutch friends actually joined us for Instagram Live at the moment, and it's the same thing with Sinterklaas in the Netherlands. Yeah, we can say a lot of political things around it, and maybe there are some, other things that are bothering people, but the spirit of that holiday was actually for kids to give them gifts that they normally don't get, right? So can we at least keep the spirits of those holidays alive? And you can say the same thing about Christmas. Christmas is a holiday. You know that it's, of course, if you're a Christian, you celebrate the birth of Christ. But a lot of people has accepted that holiday as maybe the ultimate holiday for the celebration of peace, and I'm good with that. So that's the spirit in, right? And if you think about, I'm a Christ follower, so don't hang up immediately if you're not. But I'm going to talk a little bit about him and about the way he taught me about love, and I want to share that with you because that's why, actually we could say, okay, if Jesus was there, then he was, the ultimate maybe personification of love. Hence, that would be a good day to celebrate peace, right? I mean, it's the spirit of the holiday. That's what I'm talking about, right? It's more important always than, where it's rooted in and stuff like that. So we sometimes get really upset with, oh, that's not the real tradition and you're not good so and so. Let's not do that, right? Maybe we need to adjust a little bit the holiday slightly, like with Thanksgiving. Yeah, I mean, it started with something maybe far back with something that we stole the land, we as Americans, right? I'm an American now too. We stole the land from the Native Americans. It's really bad, by the way. We can't turn it back, but we can keep the spirit of Thanksgiving alive, right? So that's what I'm going to talk about, right? So if you have been following me for a while and you have been following my coaching, I always say something that is very strange for people. So say you have a little bit pain in your leg, or say you are a little bit, disturbed by something, and they always ask me, Jean, how can I change that? And I always start with this thing saying maybe you should accept it first. Maybe you should accept the pain that you have first before you start changing it. Maybe the pain wants to say something bad to you. If you had an argument with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your spouse, with your daughter, with your son, with whoever is in your life, how can we change it? Maybe you should accept the fact that you maybe argue a lot about things before you think about changing. Maybe it is the argument itself that wants to tell you about something first. So you need to accept first what is before you can become who you want to be. Does that make sense? And last Friday and this morning actually, I was listening to a message from one of the pastors that I follow. His name is Ryan Leake. I could highly recommend to listen to him as well. He's a great motivator too. You don't have to be a Christian to listen to that. And he actually said, strangely enough, the same thing. He said, in this world, if we talk to someone, then we think in our mind sometimes, if you would change that, then I think I can accept you in my life, right? And we say that. Or if you go to an organization, say, hey, if you would change that, then maybe I would vote for you, right? So isn't that strange, right? We should actually maybe first accept it, and maybe acceptance leads to change. It's a pretty radical thought. Acceptance could lead to change instead of change leads to acceptance. If I love someone and I only love her when she changes certain things, that is not a nice thing. I should accept it, her the way she is, or he. It depends on who you want to live with, right? Doesn't really matter. And then maybe through that we both change, right? Does that make sense? Now, I started a while ago to follow the people that I follow here in church to teach a little bit more about how to love people. And if you take this thing, like maybe acceptance should come first before change, then you can follow that too. If you want to extend love to people, how often do we think about someone and said, yeah, but he did so and so. I can never accept that person in my life because he did so and so. And it could be someone that you really know, and it could be someone that you do know. Here's the same thing again. People do change, right? If they still do the same thing. So if a murderer murdered, right, but he's still murdering, okay, that's maybe going too far. But at some point in time, if someone repent and change his life, maybe we should change our lives too. Right? Does that make sense? We need to accept the history of a person. right? So I have a very romantic thought about love and stuff like that. So I'm a little bit old now. So let's say I meet someone new, and it would be really nice if that new someone had no history, right? So I am 60 years old, if you if you know, because I just had my birthday 2 weeks ago or something. Yeah, it's still November. You can still say happy birthday, And I know there's at least one person online who is the same age as me. It's a really beautiful age because 1960 was a really good year. Anyhow, that was all jokes aside. But so you meet someone, and then of course, from a romantic point of view, it would be really nice if that person had no history at all, right? No boyfriend or girlfriend in the past, and so we could all start with a clean slate. But it's unfortunately not true, right? It's specifically as you have an older age, and if you want to start a new relationship, that person for sure has a history. And you better accept that history instead of trip over it all the time while you are in that relationship. Okay, you might maybe go to it once in a while and talk about it, but you literally have to accept it first. Does that make sense? So, if that is true for a love relationship, maybe that's true for all the relationship. Maybe that's true for someone that you invite for dinner, maybe for Thanksgiving. So, regardless your history, I accept you for who you are, right? Maybe we can help you change to something else. That's another discussion, but maybe we should start there, right? And the same thing is here, right? If you look, if I went to an elementary school, and I went to middle school in the Netherlands, and then I went to high school, and I went to a high school which was known for people that were very rich, right? There were a lot of people that had money that went to that specific high school. Now, I was not one of them, actually, to be honest, right? It was a pretty big high school, and I was definitely, there were enough people with no money, but there were also, it was a little bit known for people that came there with money. And strangely enough, the kids that were coming from money, they were always treated slightly different. Sometimes, often by the students, because a lot of us wanted to hang out with the people with money. To be honest, I never had that attraction. Um, but I don't know, that was not a real conscious choice. It just wasn't to be. I don't want to say that I was better than anyone else. It was just the way it was, right? But even sometimes in class, we heard the teacher say, "Oh, you so and so, you should better know better from where your parents are from," right? So we tend to treat people different with when they come from a different economical background. Yeah, we tend to treat poor people different than rich people, and maybe we should not do that either, right? Maybe we should just accept people for who they are, not regardless their economical status. Does that make sense? So that's your second way of think about it when you go into into the Thanksgiving season, right? And then thirdly, how often uh, are we not influenced with but what other people saying about a person, right? And sometimes we don't want to hang out with a person because he or she has a best rep with other people, because we don't want to hear like, "Oh my gosh, are you hanging out with that person?" Right? So we do that too. Now, I grew up in the schools, my whole school career, as being a minority. Yet, believe it or not, you would not imagine that nowadays. But that was true in elementary school. It was a little bit less true in middle school for some reason, but it was definitely true when I went to high school. I mean, there were only 3 people in that high school with a different color, right? And I was one of them, and the rest, over 1,000 students were all white. So I was immediately undercast. For some people, there was a reason to want to hang out with me, and for some people, there was a reason to not want to hang out with me. So, so the people who did not wanted to hang out with me, they said, "Oh, do you want to hang out with someone who is from whatever country I was from?" You say, but there were friends who I had to admire and say, no, they still hang out with me. They hung out with me. They didn't care about what other people say. Now, you'll be honest to yourself. How much do you care about what you about what other people say. And it could also be true on Facebook, social media. Sometimes you befriend someone on social media, and other people might say, wow, that you follow that person on social media. But think about it like this, right? How can you, if you look at the first three things, how can we help change the world if we don't accept people who they are because of their history? How can we help people to change if we don't accept them first who they are because of their economical status? Right? How can we help people if we only go by what other people say about other people? Right? So sometimes we have to be the less popular person because we want to hang out with the less popular person, right? I know that from the other side because of I was from a minority, right, an ethnic minority. It was not immediately that popular. At some point in time, it became super popular to hang out with a minority, which is ridiculous too, right? I mean, you don't hang out with me because I am from a different ethnic group, right? It doesn't make me more or less interesting, right? I'm still Jewish. Does that make sense? And then last but not least, you know, how often do we hang out more with someone because they made a certain performance, right? So if someone became a movie star, someone became had a promotion at a job, someone had a nice sport performance, became a world champion, you could see their following just explodes because of their performance. Now I'm not saying you should not admire or you should not recognize someone that did a performance, but do you really want to hang out with that person because of of who they are or because of their performance? Happens all the time, right? I probably did that myself too, once in a while in my life. But those are the four things you can measure yourself of. Do you truly love someone? And love is a broader word than just only the romantic love, right? Do you love someone truly of who they are at that moment, right? And I had to think back about, okay, learning this in church, but how other people who do that, right? And then I had to go back to my own mom. Yeah, I'm a mama's baby, so just don't laugh at me. But it's a special day too for two reasons, because it is also my mother's birthday today, and she turns 91. Isn't that incredible, right? She turns 91 today, and unfortunately, the elderly home she is in quarantine, but so we cannot go there. So that's a whole different story. But think about this, when you first come into your mother's life, right? When you were born in your parents' life, you have no history, but so they love you regardless what you did. Probably the birth at that time was pretty, still it is still pretty painful, I guess. So the only history that you have with your mom is that you caused her a lot of pain by being born, right? But she accepts you with full love like that. She does not look at your economical status, right? She just loves you for who you are, right? She doesn't care what other people think about you at all, right? Because you are the most beautiful baby in the world. Now, in my case, I was the most beautiful baby in the world, but that's not true for all of you. But your mom probably loved you regardless of what you were looking like, and you didn't perform anything yet. Then maybe pooping in your pants, right? So she loved you unconditional. There was no condition, right, to that love. So we don't have to go into any religious thing to understand this word love. You only have to look at, in this case, my mom. I hope you had as great as mom as I have, to understand what the true love is. And maybe we should go back to that simple facts and step into the world and step in the world of Thanksgiving and be a little bit less concerned in how this holiday was come about, but what the spirit is. Be less concerned about what to eat on that day, on this Thursday, and definitely be less concerned about Black Friday, because that seems almost a bigger thing nowadays than Thanksgiving. All right, so that was my message about you need to accept first. Acceptance comes before change, not the other way around, right? No matter what you have in your life, try to accept it first, and you will see the change that is necessary. I know there are a few students of mine online that can actually testify that actually always works, right? It always works. Sometimes we're just fighting to find a change, and that is because we stay in that fight because we cannot accept where we are. And if you take that lessons all the way down to how to love people, you can actually translate it to that too. Try to accept people for who they were in the past, their economical situation, what other people say about them, and what they actually maybe have performed. And maybe that's a good thing to do for Thanksgiving. If you still have a seat available at your table, you want to invite someone, maybe you should invite the less obvious person. All right, this was Shah from Instagram Live. And on my podcast, Thrive and Not Survive After Child Abuse. Instagram Live, people, I will see you back next week after Black Friday, 10 o'clock, same time, same place, I'm sorry. And I wish you a wonderful week and an incredible, nice Thanksgiving. All right, bye-bye.